Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the ongoing series of webinars with the New York Oracle Users Group, co-hosted with Viscosity. And we have an exciting session today by Steve Lemme. But before we get into that, let me just give you a little bit overview about the New York Oracle Users Group. We were found and formed almost 40 years ago for the exchange of ideas, assistance, and support among users of Oracle software products. And we're always looking for abstracts. So please look on our website, and if you feel free to submit an abstract. We're always looking for anything that has Oracle in it. On the positive note, connect with us on X, which formerly Twitter, Meetup, and I mentioned abstracts, LinkedIn, Facebook, and our website is NYOUG.org. And I want to thank Viscosity for co-hosting these series of webinars. It's been going on for over 3 years and will be continuing to do so. And also Steve from Oracle, thank you again. Steve?
Okay, Coleman, looks like we've got folks settling in. And again, thank you to Viscosity as well as NYOUG for today's session. We've got a lot of great new content, and let me go ahead and get that going so we can make sure that folks can see it and experience it. Okay, me.
And by the way, if anybody who's participating in this webinar today has questions, please put it into the Q&A and Steve will tend to it.
Okay, Coleman, do you see the content?
I do, managing on-prem.
Excellent, great. Now we know everything's working, and we'll go ahead and get underway. And again, thank you for joining us today, folks. So Coleman, a few folks may remember me when I was, a product manager at Platinum and then CA for all their database management tools. And I spoke there in person at an NYOUG meeting, or perhaps it was at a, Open World or IOG conference when they, swung by the booth and picked up one of those data dictionary posters I used to publish. But the thing is, things have changed since then. And I'm back again to help Oracle technology professionals grow their skill sets and careers. And that's why I submitted this particular topic to NYOUG. And when I'm done today, I'm going to provide you some resources where you can continue your learning and even try out for free, some of the technologies, that I'm covering. And again, I'm not only here to help open your eyes on some new types of technologies, but to help you grow your skill sets as a Oracle technology professional. So let's go ahead and dive in. Well, it's no surprise these days that databases are deployed so many more places than they just used to be in a data center. And the real question is, who is keeping an eye on all those across the business? Do you even know where they all are? Who's minding them, keeping them running and secured? So that's really the inception of today's presentation. Now, a quick quiz, Coleman. For which of these deployment types, the doors here displayed, which is the one that a DBA really doesn't need to worry about?
Well, I got to put my DBA hat on because
yep. or even a developer doesn't really have to worry about.
I'd say all the way on the right.
You're right, SaaS. So pretty much all the other database deployment types have to be managed by someone. SaaS is essentially the model where, hey, I can just let somebody manage it for me. So pretty much we'll be talking about all these different areas excepting SaaS. So a few of you also may be thinking this topic matter is kind of a problem below your pay grade. Well, I'm here to actually tell you it's an opportunity, and let's go ahead and see why. Today, most businesses are using some form of cloud deployments, and most often it's being used in combination with traditional data centers. And many businesses are now using more one cloud provider in their business. This is a big change than when we started, Coleman, the cloud SIG over a decade ago in the user community. So So what does this mean for, developers or database administrators? Well, no surprise, the complexity of the applications continue to rise as applications with stateless and microservices and container-based apps can have databases that are on premises, in the cloud, or a hybrid combination, or even multi-cloud. Um, I don't think you'll hear any professional tell you, Coleman, that the number of applications continues to shrink or their database deployments. It continues to rise, which means there's more work to manage and more data to protect. It's harder and it's taking more time to isolate issues as the complexity rises. And there's even more data to be looking at, AKA telemetry and metrics, to be observed to essentially develop and test out these new complex cloud native apps. And as we hear in the news practically each week these days, bad actors are taking advantage of the databases left in buckets unprotected. All of these are challenges that probably are being faced today by many of you that are actually on today's call. And if you haven't faced some of these, perhaps in the future, you will be. And if you turn to the industry analysts who always have some great information, and a lot of times this is the information your C-levels or executives are looking at, being advised by, we can see that this is an industry-wide problem. And it's not necessarily yourself as much as your business is dealing with a lot of technology debt. And we hear that term, what does that really mean? Well, that is in essence, the tools you inherited when you took the job there. They were evaluated by others for the requirements of the business and technology probably more than a decade ago. It's not often that someone new in the role is getting to make some of those decisions. And so that is one of the challenges also that's out there impacting folks. Well, this is probably the biggest eye-opening change for the database professional is where can databases now essentially be? And when I started my career as a DBA, essentially I had a data center, I had machines in that data center, I had locked doors that I had to go through with a badge reader to go into that data center, and I could go in and see the blinky lights on the systems for the databases I managed. And that was essentially the role of the DBA. But now database management encompasses much more than that physical data center. There are now and have been databases in virtualized environments for quite a while. That was kind of pre-cloud. Databases that started going on to infrastructure as a service on public clouds, early inception of Amazon, for example. Then platform as service, where there was even more capabilities and more enabled. And then as customers started to use different pieces of these, or their developers did, then you essentially moved into modes such as, hybrid and multi-cloud management. And so the reality is today, it's critical for database professionals to, modernize their methods to perform database management that encompass essentially these types of deployments. And I've got some good news because you already have Oracle database skill sets. It means the business doesn't really need to hire any extra cloud professional specialists. And all you really need to do is show them why and how, using the information you learn in today's session, some ways to do that. And unfortunately, there are some hurdles to overcome to do that. And we'll see one of those in a second, where there's inefficiencies probably currently happening that are actually eating up a lot of your time, unfortunately. So if you're not familiar with the term observability, it's an important one for the database professional to know. And in fact, Coleman finished writing an article for the German Oracle user group online magazine, DOAG, just over the holidays on this very subject matter. Within the circles of cloud native developers and DevOps professionals, observability is really a big thing. And so we're going to go ahead and help our Oracle database technologists learn a little bit more about it, why it's important, and how to start utilizing it in their role. And we've even got some, cautionary information here, again, from the industry analysts is, just because something may have been working well in the past, it's not necessarily the right thing to be doing for the future. And that's evolving in many customers' businesses today. You may be in the middle of a project, banging your head on the wall as we speak. And so hopefully some information here will help you. Now, observability tools themselves, we're starting to see history repeat itself. And that's because of all of the different tools and that technology debt, from the past. And most organizations are adopting some type of observability type project or initiative. Unfortunately, a lot of it is not being shared or having the involvement of IT or even DBAs. It's all happening within the realm of just, development. So if you hear about this, you certainly should perk up your ears and become more involved. Now, we also can see that this is something that is not going away. And in fact, again, another industry analyst talking about how this is being adopted more across the business. And the reason for it is it's very advantageous and it's critical for digital businesses, modern businesses to now be moving forward. And a lot of the things when I speak with customers and I speak with industry analysts, I'm hearing is some of the things that Coleman people were doing 10 years ago in terms of database administration are now regarded as legacy. And certainly as a professional, if you're in the career for a while, you don't want anyone labeling you as a legacy, most certainly. So digital transformation is a word that's being used on the modernization that businesses are doing and why and how these databases are getting deployed in all these different configurations. And again, we'll get to that in just a moment. And so one of the first things I hear is people saying, oh, well, we've got, plenty of monitoring already set up. Well, that's fine. But monitoring is just the top of this pyramid here. And I like to use the analogy in terms of health. When you're monitoring, AKA my health, something bad has happened. I've gone into the hospital and now the doctor is essentially trying to bring me back. For instance, the monitoring on the EKG machine, I've flatlined and now they're trying to figure out what has happened. And hopefully in time they get me back before, I cease to exist. So monitoring is really based on sets of metrics and information and then taking action something has actually happened. Now, observability is actually observing along the way. In other words, in my healthcare, I go in for my annual physical. I have a cholesterol check. I've got blood work that's routinely done. They're watching my vitamins level. So along the way during the year, I'm being observed so I don't have something bad happen. And it's much more easier to recover from something or to correctively take action before it's actually happened. So this is really the nuances and differences between monitoring and observability. And so just because somebody says they have monitoring, or they say even their monitoring tool is an observability tool, not necessarily the truth. And you want to understand more about this terminology and area, and we can certainly talk more about that today, but I want to dive into some of the technology side of this as well.
We did have one question and I did answer it. And the question was, will this presentation be available later on? Is it being recorded? And the answer is yes, it'll be available from Viscosity and also from NYOUG's website.
Great, thank you for doing that, Coleman. Now, I mentioned Oracle DBAs have an advantage, and there's yet another advantage outside of just being able to reuse existing skill sets. And in the case of Oracle's technology, there is a term being used across the observability world called MELT, M-E-L-T-S, metrics, events, logs, traces. Again, not necessarily a term that a DBA may be familiar with, but if you speak to developers, DevOps, they nod their head and they all talk about MELT. Well, within what Oracle's been doing in this space, we've actually added an S. So it's actually melts plural because we're able to go all the way down into the SQL based upon the way the database has been instrumented, based away the way we could look across all the technology tiers. And so again, this is a second advantage Oracle DBAs have, and you certainly want to be taking advantage of this capability, not just letting it pass you by. And so within the melt paradigm, all the things are essentially emitting metrics or telemetry. Your database is, your application is, their logs are, the infrastructure is. And so you have all this data and data types and different log types you're now dealing with. And of course, you need to know about all of them and where they are, and then be able to have insight across them and bring them together. And really, the Oracle technology is very well set up for this because we are the vendor of the cloud infrastructure. We are the vendor of the database. We're the vendor of the application, and so on and so forth. And so as you additively have Oracle pieces, you have greater insight and more telemetry that you're able to work with. And out of the box practices, because again, you don't necessarily see other vendors will have, particular applied observability dashboard for, say, Oracle e-business suite when you move it onto OCI, or for PeopleSoft when you move it over to OCI. A lot of this used to be done in custom approaches prior to the cloud days. And so really Oracle DBAs should really seek out opportunities and apply your deep knowledge of essentially the Oracle database and the SQL and apply it essentially to these projects happening within your business. If anything, you can add the S to melt. Now, I was just talking to Coleman just prior to us starting the seminar, and this is actually a big change that not many have noticed, is a lot of the ways and methods that have been used to manage databases have been using technology that was based upon the architecture of essentially the Oracle 7 or even 10 up to 11 database. And if you look at the documentation, AKA the data dictionary views, that was anywhere from 3 to 1,300 pages up until the 11G days. And then there was a big change. Database 12c introduced the multi-tenant architecture. And then moving forward from that, then a lot of the new features and capabilities and cloud abilities available in 23c and beyond, where it's now almost 3,000 pages. So the database itself is actually one of the most instrumented databases in the industry. But one of the things I see actually happening is many database professionals are not taking advantage of it. Your business has purchased, the leading database in the market, and you should be taking advantage of that. So, don't be, leaving yourself behind back in the database 7 era. There is so much more to take advantage of in the latest supported database releases. Now, many of you may be thinking, working through these challenges and capabilities to manage databases, whether in the cloud or on premise. You're familiar with technologies like Oracle Enterprise Manager, which continues as Oracle's flagship for deep management of the Oracle stack. And it does have the capabilities to take care of the challenges we've been speaking with. Now, what makes it unique for what it does is it's something you install, maintain, and manage on your site. Now, for some customers, they're not allowed to use the public cloud. And so this works out to be great for them because this also helps them with things such as private clouds. Now, other customers we speak with have said, we're doing all this digital type transformation. We're making new cloud native applications. We need something modern. And in fact, we prefer it be managed for us, like a SaaS service. And so that's where Oracle Observability and Management come in. And it's a set of services that are fully integrated already into OCI, such that essentially you go into the menu on the OCI console and you essentially subscribe and start using those services. And so really it's a choice now for our customers based upon their requirements. And we've even provided integration now between the two of these. And so there's even a great use case where you can now go into all those repositories of information you've been collecting for years with Enterprise Manager and bring that information into essentially OCI and apply the operations insight machine learning based technology. And now that chore of having to do, for instance, database budgeting and capacity planning, over years of time is much more simple and easier than trying to juggle spreadsheets or just kind of say, oh, we'll just try adding 20% to next year's budget, which of course, management typically these days immediately shoots down. So what is this new observability and management solution? And I say new, it's not that new. We've had it for quite a while now in terms of it being introduced to the market, but I know some of you did not make it out to Cloud World or may have not seen this out in your local user community, such as NYOUG. And so within OCI Observability and Management is the database management service. And it is managed for you. And the benefit of that is literally every 6 to 8 weeks, there's new support being added and there is new features being added. And you're not constantly having to patch it. You're not constantly having to update it to take advantage of that or interrupting business for that matter. It works off a cloud native platform, so it makes it virtually available from anywhere. It does cover the full stack, whether that be your stack that's on your premises in your data center, if you're running that on Oracle's cloud, if you're running a piece on Amazon or some other vendor's cloud like Azure, and it's backed by the latest technology. And so I know DBAs for years have been trying to, as they manage their databases, get ahead of the game, try to analyze as much of that data as you're able to, collect. But you didn't really have the abilities to build your own big data farm on site. I know I tried as a DBA to do that, Coleman, that, find an extra system, start putting all the data in there, build like a big data performance warehouse to try to help me, get ahead of the game. And, I just got shut down by management for cost reasons. But the cloud is perfect for being able to harness the latest technology in a subscription-based model. In other words, you don't have to buy the capital. And because the Oracle technologies are familiar, then they're already pre-integrated and they know about, each other's, file formats, data formats, log formats, etc. So it's easier to bring everything all together. So I'm not here to go through all of the observability management services. I'm here to focus on database management specifically, but this is the observability and management offering here, the upper tier. Not only is there's the database and OS management services, there's logging analytics, stack monitoring, especially of interest to our customers moving things such as our apps unlimited over to OCI, APM, as well as the operations insight capacity planning that I mentioned. All these available integrated into OCI already. And Coleman, it looks like I've got another question. So in this case, does observability management communicate with Oracle DataSafe, CloudGuard, Autonomous Recovery Service? What I can say is if it doesn't today, it is something that is possible or will be done. As you can imagine, as we continue to build out the Oracle Cloud, there are many different types of use cases and requirements our customers have, and essentially HA is one of them. And so, yes, as these are all built on the same infrastructure, OCI, those capabilities either exist or are easier to perform. So great question, and keep those coming. So this is the observability management services overall, but again, I'm focusing today on the database management practices. So let's go ahead and continue on. So what is essentially Oracle Cloud Database Management? Well, there is the Oracle Cloud Database Service. So that means you can use a Oracle database as a cloud service. This is a service separate from that can actually help manage that service along with other types of database deployments you have for the Oracle Cloud. In fact, it'll even do the MySQL databases if you have those also. But again, being a SaaS-like service, you don't have to go wait for an environment to put it on or install a repository, license a particular pack. You don't have to take care of patching or integration or scripting work. You essentially go to the OCI console and you essentially subscribe and you start using it within a matter of minutes. And at the end of this presentation, I'll provide a link to how you can go check that out for free. And it helps you manage these databases of different types and deployment methods across all these different environments we were showing earlier, which has been a challenge, especially with some of the technology debt many of you may be dealing with today. Now, because again, it's on the common infrastructure of OCI, it is able to interact and is already integrated with other services in O&M, such as application performance management or stack monitoring. So often when there is a performance issue, many people are familiar with the challenge of, you have a tool for the database and it says, oh, look, it's something related to the application. The application administrator has a tool and their APM tool says, no, it's a SQL issue. Well, this helps resolve that. The products are integrated, they're sharing information, there's a common source of truth. So that in itself is a huge benefit for aiding faster performance diagnostics. But the other thing is, as your databases are progressing in terms of their technologies, multi-tenant use, database 1923C use, as well as these different deployment methods, that continues to be supported and added to the product, again, without the reliance on you having to schedule downtime and do upgrades and these other things. So as you log in, each week you may see new capabilities that you now are able to use, and it's just part of the subscription. That is the nice thing about having cloud native management capabilities. And so essentially, as I mentioned, that it gives you the ability to manage databases from practically anywhere. It provides you not only the standard type of maintenance type activities, but it gives you unified database diagnostics and tuning that are very sophisticated. I mentioned earlier about the capabilities of the data dictionary and the new metrics and telemetry that have come out since the Oracle 7 era. And a lot of those were not necessarily utilized by database professionals, especially on the development side, because it might have encompassed purchasing a pack and you just weren't able to justify in your business licensing that pack for perpetuity. Well, in this case, there aren't the concept of packs. You're able to go in and use those advanced diagnostics as they're part of the service. And then simplifying and helping automate administration with a number of powerful capabilities as well. That is something that benefits, DBAs as well as, DevOps teams who have very agile type of development methods, and they can't necessarily wait these days for, IT teams to do many of the things that a traditional database requires. So the performance diagnostics monitoring management is very rich and deep, and more capabilities continue to be added. But here's just a few that we were talking back at the CA World time period. And so, being able to get in-depth SQL metric details and being able to have that available to developers. Again, a lot of developers have not used nor would be permitted access by their DBAs, for instance, to Enterprise Manager. It typically has been a solution used by DBAs. Well, in the cloud native world, developers are working with databases every day. They need to be administering those in their own realm. They need to make sure they're protected as well, keeping them housekeeping. And so again, having capability from the cloud provides now these other roles such as developers, DevOps, applications, admin, some of their own capabilities and independency, from DBAs. And the good news is it's all tied together. And so you don't necessarily have divergence across your environment. So I always like to have just kind of 3 points about database management now these days. you need to be able to view your databases in one place, no matter whether they're on-premise, they're in a hybrid combination of cloud and on-premise, or across different vendors' clouds. So a DBA's role should be encompassing, day-to-day activities involving that. If you're still just working with databases on your premises, well, most of other folks in businesses today are not. You need capability to get insight faster and down to the actual statistics across these different environments. And that, in fact, I've seen database professionals take weeks, if not longer, to try to even do that, as they try to even still script, awk, grep, Perl, you name it, run scripts trying to bring together these different data files and data types and logs and things, trying to get a handle on it. And when you're administrating, you got to remember it's not just a database that's on a premises any longer, it's a database that's in a cloud. And so the fleet level administration encompasses this type of thinking as well. And when I say a fleet, that's usually a customer who has hundreds or thousands of databases. Most certainly if you're a database administrator and you've got, 10 databases, some of these capabilities may not be things you need. But as more DBAs, more folks in DevOps are being asked to manage even more databases than ever before, then these are things that are essentially essential. And we can't go without saying database security and compliance. And that's again because unfortunately every week we're seeing news about something being breached. Sometimes it's because something wasn't properly secured. It was because a configuration was left open that was known to be insecure. And so I know when I was a DBA, I had barely enough time just to check the health of my databases to make sure they were available and performing. The compliance aspect and the ability of being able to compare all of my databases to, the industry standards was unfortunately third or fourth down on my list, and I didn't get a lot of opportunity to do it. And unfortunately, these days, it's got to be at the top of the list as well. It looks like we've got another question, Coleman, and it says, if you license Enterprise Manager, Diagon tuning packs, and switch to observability management, can the licenses be dropped? Well, that's a great question again. And so in the case of a customer who has decided, hey, I no longer want to use on-premise management using Enterprise Manager, and I want to move to the OCI, there's actually a bring your own license program. That's something you would talk to your Oracle representative about. In other words, if you've got an investment already in packs, or even licensed databases on site, they have actually programs with some extra value and benefit, moving on to OCI. Now, if you're brand new and you're just starting out on OCI, then there is no concept, of course, as I mentioned, of diagnostics or tuning packs. The other thing that's happening, and I'll show you here in a second, is we've been cherry picking a lot of the best of features out of Enterprise Manager and putting them into the cloud offering. So there is no one-to-one correlation today. So there could be something you're using today that you really like in Enterprise Manager, but it's not available in O&M. And it may never be, or maybe it's just coming here in the future. So yes, it's a great question to be asking. And again, based upon your business requirements, it's a great thing to be talking to your rep about. Thank you again for the question. So as we continue on, essentially about OCI database management, what are some of the capabilities that it has? Well, as I mentioned, if you've got a large, fleet of databases, typically 100 plus, you need the ability to look across those quickly, understand what the health is and assess those, check and see if anything has it alarmed. And you probably also want some custom dashboarding. I haven't met a customer yet that hasn't wanted to adopt a dashboard a particular way. Sometimes a DBA wants to look at the databases one way, DevOps wants to look at it another. And again, that capability is provided as part of the service. There is no extra, analytics or dashboarding service you have to get. Its capabilities already built within to do that. And also, when you additively add the O&M services together, the custom dashboards encompass the other componentry as well. For example, if I'm moving EBS onto OCI, I can have a health dashboard for my EBS application, inclusive of the EBS app, its concurrent manager, the Oracle database, the WebLogic server, etc. So the custom dashboards are available, so you don't need to go off, for instance, and do something with Grafana, which I know is popular with some folks. Obviously, system monitoring and observability is key. And so being able to look at the resource groups and being able to get down into the system components of our actual database targets, out of the box performance dashboards that you can easily bring up and look at and analyze information quickly. In addition to being able to do things with custom dashboarding, database logs, something is always something the DBAs are looking at, making sure you're not getting those Aura 600 errors or other types of errors that are creating issues within the database realm, or even exposing those to people in roles who aren't DBAs, even junior DBAs, so they get more familiar with being able to administer databases. That capability being available in the service. Now, where the database management service really starts to get interesting is the performance management capabilities. And so again, we've had customers that in the past were not able to, for whatever reason, utilize some of the things that were in the packs or some of the additional telemetry in the database. And so now that is exposed in the database management service, being there is no concept of any extra packs. So SQL warehouse type capability, so you can look across your SQL data for a period of time, helping with seasonality type issues, and as well getting down all the way down to the SQL ID. I mentioned that earlier, that S on melts, something that's very powerful for organizations who aren't using the full paradigm of the melt observability strategy. And of course, things such as technology that's familiar out of real application testing, such as SQL tuning, performance tuning sets, and other types of capabilities to be looking at the SQL, generating and doing analysis on it and making sure that it's performing optimally. Performance Hub, now available, diving again down into the aspects of active session history analytics, SQL monitoring, top activity light, blocking sessions. When you've got an issue happening, you certainly want all that in one view that you can access very quickly and then have the capability to drill down. And then Atom Spotlight. Not everything is happening real time. And so the ability to go over 25 months of time of historical analysis. And again, this is where the cloud technology is great, applying AI-based machine learning to look through all those volumes of data for you prior to essentially moving something onto the cloud platform. You might be able to do this, but it took a bit of horsepower and took a bit of capacity and time to do it. And so the cloud offering is much better, and its advanced technology processes it much more quickly. So as we start to kind of wrap up here, my goal was to bring to view that databases are now being deployed in different environments. And it may not be in what you're working with today, but odds are in your business, databases are now in a cloud somewhere. They're being put across different clouds, or there's plans to do that. And so as a database professional, odds are you have some technology debt. And so one of the things I do when I speak with customers and I speak in the user community is I recommend annually now, because again, the technology I was just talking about in the cloud, every 6 to 8 weeks is new technology, new capabilities. It used to be 3 years that I remember, Coleman, when I was a DBA, that typically I would be evaluating things for technology change. It's happening so quickly now. So I always recommend it annually, especially budget review time, to go do an analysis of what you have currently in your business. And you'll be surprised. One of the industry analysts said customers typically have upwards of 50 plus different monitoring tools, or at least tools that say they do monitoring. And the first thing is, don't assume that because they are monitoring tools, they are observability tools. They are not. And so it's key for folks in your organization to actually understand those differences. Now, those tools can be, traditional database monitoring tools. It can be the IT ops tools that go back to the framework days. I used to work on one of them, the Unicenter days. There's APM tools that a lot of application developers have used independently. Again, I used to work on one of those, the Wiley days, and there's new AI op tools that are being marketed on the buzz of AI this and AI that. People from the systems management side have had logging tools and data scientists, creating models for those logging tools to go do some very deep analysis. And there's a whole new rise of observability tools as you watch, industry analyst reports. So there's many different tools. You want to inventory what you have, and then you want to start looking at it in terms of, was it designed for modern applications, databases, and business, the things we talked about earlier, or was it, tools that were, purchased around the client server era, the Oracle database single tenant era, or even pre-cloud architecture. If it's not architected for these newer environments, it's going to be problematic and cause you probably more issues in your business than trying to reuse it. And you certainly, as we've seen historically, want to be able to have those tools readily integrate. Because we've seen historically in the past, if you've got all these different tools, different repositories and different tools and different access methods and different agents, and you just go down the list, actually costs the business more money and takes more resources and hardware and even time from DBAs and developer and DevOps professionals. So, some of the things to, watch for is, are the development organizations now using containers, Kubernetes or Docker or some of these environments? And have they started to do things across, environments as well? These are definitely signals to help, go and look and do your evaluation. Also, the other thing to look at is when you then decide, hey, I think this tool is something that's going to help us, go check the vendor site, have the conversation with vendor, the tool, and make sure it supports the latest Oracle technology releases. And watch for terms like compatible. If you see that, definitely ask your vendor, look at your documentation to see what that means and how they test it. I say that because I used to be a vendor of third-party tools, and we would hit the term compatible when we would essentially go and try it out and it would work. And so we would say, yep, looks like it works, but that was the only test we did. And again, a lot of the tools marked compatible these days are the ones that go back to, the Oracle 7 single tenant era. They may just even look at, 10 or 20 views in the data dictionary from the Oracle 7 days. And as we've seen in the latest version of 23C, a lot has changed. So these are things to consider as you're going through and, doing your documentation and inventory of what you currently have.
We have a question.
I do, and it looks like some folks are moving their Oracle EBS application into Oracle Cloud, and essentially they've been using, it looks like, the Enterprise Manager tuning pack. Would it cost a lot more money to switch over to observability management? And the question is, it depends. I don't necessarily know if you've got custom extensions or other things. It's interesting, as customers move their apps, Coleman, over to OCI, I don't think I've seen a vanilla application deployment yet. And most customers have done some type of custom integration or some type of augmentation of the app on premise. So again, that means they've got specific requirements when they go onto OCI that they want to be watching that as well. So I can't necessarily say yes or no, but certainly again, your Oracle team can help you make that decision. One of the things I can say is there is a lot of technology debt for our customers running Apps Unlimited because they had very specific technology hardware that was essentially assembled. It was very custom. And a lot of that hardware technology has aged, its legacy is no longer supported by the hardware vendors. And in fact, support rates have gone up considerably for that. So usually when you move Applications Unlimited over onto OCI, there is cost savings typically. But again, I don't know the specifics of your business and environment. So I would definitely have that conversation with your Oracle account team. But a great question. And again, we've got the observability management stack monitoring product that when you move on to OCI, you actually run the service. It automatically discovers all the components of EBS and automatically starts monitoring it for you, which that in itself is a difference than doing on-premises database management for EBS. Okay, we're getting here close to the end. So again, not only did I want to go ahead and provide kind of an update so that you as an Oracle technology professional can take advantage of technologies in growing your career and being more successful, but understanding what that technology is that's available. Now, the moment I present this information to your members, Coleman, it's probably getting old because again, there could be a new release that's just around the corner that's happening. So we're going to continue to present these types of presentations within the user community and events like Cloud World to help keep you up to date. But I've also got some links here I'm going to share at the end so you can do that in between those as well. And so that being said, the first one is the blog site that we now have. Our product managers provide about 2 examples a week, either involving latest enhancements within the services or how to use and apply them in your business. We even have some of our Oracle aces providing examples, and also there's customer stories and successes here as well. If there's the only one thing you do after today's session is please subscribe to this blog site, as it will be immensely helpful with all the information. And who knows, in the future, you maybe have something here to share as well. Looks like we've got another question that has come in. Can this monitor Oracle SaaS products? Excellent question we're getting. So Oracle SaaS, as I mentioned at the very beginning, is typically an environment all managed for you. So there's nothing for you to manage on Oracle SaaS because that's part of its value proposition. But we get that question quite often. In general, the observability management products I just mentioned is how Oracle runs its cloud. So we utilize the same technologies I'm sharing today to deliver our Oracle SaaS applications behind the scenes in a very scalable and automated way, obviously. Typically, there's nothing exposed essentially in the SaaS applications for you to monitor. I have heard in some particular engagements with, for instance, our professional services organizations or managed service organizations where customers have had some augmentation or custom integrations with SaaS. There may be ability there. And again, I'd have to point you towards your account teams for having, the conversations that are specific to your business's requirements. But no, great question. Pretty much today's focus has been on, where a database may lie on a standard data center. Could be virtualized, in VMware, a database that you've now moved on to infrastructure as a service, whether that's on Oracle Cloud or on Amazon or Azure, or databases that are in platform and a service on Oracle Cloud. So here are some of the links I mentioned. Coleman's going to drop some of these actually into the chat. I'm going to provide the presentation to NYOUG so that you can go ahead and also share this with your peers and your management. One of the key things I want to point out is our Oracle Live Labs. We still hear some customers do not know about this wonderful resource. So again, in the earlier days, I would present in the user community. We'd have to set up labs and environments, and it would be very challenging for us to do hands-on lab activities. In other words, why believe the speaker? I want to actually go try this out myself. So Oracle Live Labs is essentially enabled by our cloud, and you're able to jump on there and try out the technology I just spoke about. Introduction to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and Database Management is just one of the many workshops that's out there. There's one for each of the observability management services I mentioned, as well as a full environment for Enterprise Manager. In fact, Coleman, one of the fastest ways now to spin up Enterprise Manager 13.5 is in 20 minutes, I can have a fully running environment right off of Live Labs. And I use that all the time to share and demonstrate and to do learning in user communities and workshops. So all of these are wonderful resources, but I highly tout the Oracle Live Labs. Now, you of course can take those yourself. You can even have your account team, run a Live Lab seminar on your site, depending upon interest and availability. And I see those links coming through on the chat. Thank you so much, Coleman. So at this point, what I want to go ahead and do is move towards a wrap up and see if we've got any further questions. And I hope folks have learned at least one thing during today's session. Okay, well, it looks, a question just came in. Let's see, can you post the links here? I can't copy them from the chat. Sometimes that does happen, apologies. When the presentation goes out, they will be enabled in that. So rest assured, you'll be able to get access to those links. Why don't you see, Coleman, if you can answer that last question, paste them in, and that may help as well.
In here? Okay.
Yeah, either way, you will get access and information to those.
They type answer. Let's see if we can do it that way.
Yep.
Send.
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions pending. So back over to you. Yep, back over to you, Coleman.
Okay, we got it. Again, the webinar will be available on Viscosity's website, Orapub, and also NYOUG, along with those links.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to present to you, and have a wonderful day.